It's the day of his wedding, the man who once promised me everything. The man who left me broken, crippled, and abandoned in my most vulnerable state. And now here I am, forced to watch as he says, I do to someone else. What happens when the person you once loved, the person you thought you knew, turns into someone you can no longer recognize? What happens when the man who kicked you while you were in a wheelchair, while you were at your lowest, is the very same man who expects your forgiveness? Can you ever truly forgive someone for something like that? And most importantly, what do you do when your own strength surprises even you? Emily Davis sat at the small kitchen table, the delicate wedding invitation resting between her trembling fingers. The elegant gold lettering on the cream-colored card burned into her eyes, but the words remained blurry. Nathan Ward and Hannah Carter request the honor of your presence at their wedding. She inhaled sharply, fighting to steady the lump in her throat. It was almost too much. Too many memories. Too many broken promises. Nathan had been everything to her, once her best friend, her soulmate, her future. But now he was just a man on a pedestal, marrying someone else. Someone who wasn't her. Her hand instinctively went to her legs, now useless beneath her. She could still feel the phantom pain from the accident, the night that had shattered everything. The car had been speeding along the quiet road, the night air fresh, filled with the promise of another adventure. Nathan had been in the driver's seat, his hand resting on hers, laughing as they talked about their plans for the future. That was before the tires screeched, the metal twisted, and her world flipped upside down. When Emily awoke in the hospital, it was as though she had been transported to another world. The pain in her legs was overwhelming, but what stung more was the absence of Nathan by her side. He hadn't been there when she woke up. He hadn't been there when the doctors explained that her life, her future, had changed forever. She would never walk again. Nathan had visited her once, just once. His eyes had been distant, his words like ice. He hadn't stayed long. And then, as weeks passed, his visits dwindled until they stopped completely. That was when Emily truly began to understand. It wasn't just the accident that had torn them apart. It was his own guilt, his own cowardice. He couldn't face her, not after what had happened that night. And now here they were. Nathan was getting married. To a woman who had no idea what he was capable of. To a woman who would never know the man he had been. To a woman who, in her ignorance, would stand beside him in front of all those people, not knowing the truth. Emily's chest tightened as she held the invitation in her hand. She had to go. Not for Nathan, but for herself. For closure. Maya's right, she whispered to herself, her voice shaking. I need to be there. I need to face him. As the day of the wedding drew closer, Emily felt the weight of the decision press down on her. Maya, her best friend, had been a constant source of support. Maya had been there the day the accident happened and every day after. She had watched Emily slowly pick up the pieces of her life. But even Maya couldn't understand the depths of the betrayal, the bitterness that still burned inside Emily's heart. I don't know if I can do this, Emily admitted to Maya over the phone the night before the wedding. You can, for you. You don't need to do it for him. You just need to prove to yourself that you're strong enough to face this. You've got this, Maya urged, her voice full of conviction. The night before the wedding, Emily lay awake, memories flooding her mind. She remembered their first kiss, the way his lips had felt soft against hers, the way he had smiled afterward, like they were the only two people in the world. They had talked about their future, about the house they would buy, the family they would have. But now, it felt like a dream that had slipped through her fingers, leaving only the cold emptiness of reality. She could hear Maya's words in her head as she prepared herself the next morning. You've got this. Emily stared at her reflection in the mirror as she dressed for the wedding, her fingers trembling as she buttoned her blouse. She wasn't sure what she expected when she walked into that church. What did one do when forced to face a ghost of the past? A man who had been both her best friend and the cause of her downfall? Her wheelchair sat beside the bed, her faithful companion. She had grown used to it, no, she had learned to live with it. But this day, this wedding would be a test in every sense. She couldn't escape the past. She couldn't escape the way her heart still ached for him, even after everything. Even after the accident. Even after the betrayal. When Emily arrived at the church, her heart dropped into her stomach. The lavish decorations and the sound of soft music playing through the speakers made it feel like something out of a dream or perhaps a nightmare. Maya helped her out of the car, offering her arm to steady her as they made their way inside. The guests were milling about, laughing, chatting, all focused on the couple about to marry. Nathan stood at the altar, looking every bit the picture of perfection. He was tall, his features sharp and handsome, his dark hair combed back neatly. He looked nothing like the man she had known. His smile was wide, but his eyes were cold. He hadn't even looked at her. Not yet. Emily could feel the weight of every gaze as she was wheeled to a seat reserved for guests with disabilities. She hated the feeling of being singled out like this, but it was better than not being here at all. As the ceremony began, Emily focused on the man she once loved, now so far removed from the person she had shared her heart with. "Do you, Nathan Ward, take Hannah Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Emily's stomach churned as she watched him smile and nod, his voice ringing out with ease, as if he had never once questioned this moment. The vows, the promises all seemed so hollow. As he spoke them, Emily could see the faintest flicker of something. Regret? Shame? It was too brief to be certain, but it was there. His eyes scanned the room, and for a moment they landed on her. His face tensed for the briefest second before he quickly looked away. Something felt wrong. Emily's pulse quickened. Her eyes narrowed. It was as though she could feel it in her bones. Something was about to change. She didn't know what, but she knew she couldn't escape it. Her wheelchair felt too confining, too limiting. As she watched Nathan and Hannah exchange their vows, something inside her snapped. The vows had been exchanged. Nathan and Hannah stood at the altar, their faces glowing with a love that Emily could only dream of. The applause of the guests rang in her ears, but it felt like a distant noise. Her heart beat loudly in her chest, drowning out everything around her. She couldn't tear her eyes away from Nathan, watching him as he stood there, his posture perfect, his smile dazzling. But there was something about it that made her stomach turn. A false sense of security. A mask that hadn't been there before. As the newlyweds kissed, Emily's eyes flickered toward the door. Her gaze was distant, but her mind was racing. The guests were clapping, the music playing, and Nathan and Hannah were the center of it all. But Emily was still frozen, trapped in a world where she was no longer the woman he loved. Her mind kept replaying the scene from years ago, the night everything had changed. The night that had led her here. The accident had been the catalyst, but it was the years after that had truly broken her. Nathan had been her everything, and she had given him all of herself. But after the crash, everything shattered, her body, her spirit, and the life she had envisioned. Maya's voice echoed in her mind as she struggled to stay focused. "For your peace, Em. You've been through so much. It's time to let go of the past." But how could she let go when the past had never truly let go of her? Emily's fingers tightened around the armrest of her wheelchair. Her eyes darted between Nathan and Hannah, watching their every move, and that's when she noticed it, Nathan's gaze. It was fleeting, but it was unmistakable. He had seen her. He had acknowledged her presence, and his expression faltered. There was something there. Something in the way he quickly averted his eyes, as if the weight of her stare had been too much for him. Was it guilt? Her pulse quickened. He had to know. The truth had to come out, no matter how painful it would be for her. No matter how much he wanted to pretend. The couple made their way down the aisle, their hands intertwined, and Emily felt a twinge of jealousy, a bitter, sharp feeling that sliced through her. She wasn't angry at Hannah. No, not at all. She didn't even know the woman. She was angry at Nathan. For betraying her. For forgetting her. For everything he had done and left undone. As the crowd began to filter out toward the reception hall, Emily was wheeled outside by Maya. The air was cool, the sky a perfect shade of blue, but Emily could only focus on one thing, Nathan. He was talking to guests, laughing, playing the part of the perfect groom. And yet, in the back of his eyes, Emily could see the flicker of something else. Maya leaned in close, whispering, "Em, you're not going to let him get away with this, are you?" Emily's lips pressed together in a thin line, her thoughts swirling. I don't know. I don't know if I can. But I know this, he's not the man I thought he was." Maya gave a small nod, her expression softening. "You deserve better, You've always deserved better." The reception was already in full swing by the time they arrived. The glittering chandeliers, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, it all felt like a facade to Emily. She couldn't focus on the celebrations. Not when the truth was gnawing at her. Nathan's lies. His secrets. The way he had abandoned her when she needed him most. They made their way inside, and Emily's heart raced in her chest. The walls felt like they were closing in. She needed to see Nathan. She needed him to look at her, really look at her, and understand what he had done, what he had taken from her. Maya gently wheeled her closer to the dance floor, her eyes scanning the crowd. It was then that she saw him again, Nathan. His eyes were locked on her. This time there was no quick glance away, no attempt to look past her. He was staring, his lips parted slightly, a flicker of something crossing his features. Panic? Regret? Guilt? Whatever it was, it made Emily's chest tighten. She pushed the wheelchair forward, making her way through the crowd toward him. Nathan's gaze didn't waver. His shoulders stiffened, his smile faltering as she approached. "Emily," he said, his voice low. "I didn't think you would come." There was something in his tone, an edge of nervousness that made her pause. Was he truly surprised? Or was this all part of the act he had created for himself? "I had to," she replied, her voice cold but steady. "It's the least I could do to see you marry someone else." Her words hung in the air like a challenge, a dare for him to face the truth. Nathan swallowed, his face twisting slightly in discomfort. He was trying to hide it, but Emily could see it, the flicker of recognition. He knew. He knew that she wasn't here just to watch him marry. She was here to confront him. She was here to expose the lies. You look different," Nathan said, his voice thick with something that almost sounded like remorse. "I didn't expect this. I didn't think you'd come, much less." "Much less what, Nathan?" She cut him off, her voice rising, cutting through the air like a blade. "What did you think I would do? Sit at home helpless? Watch you marry someone else while you walk away from everything we had?" His eyes widened, and for a split second, Emily saw something in him that almost made her falter. Guilt. Regret. But then it happened. The moment of reckoning. Nathan's hand shot out, shoving her wheelchair back, the force jarring Emily. The crowd fell silent. A gasp rippled through the room as Emily's chair teetered. The room was suddenly too still, too quiet, as if the universe itself had stopped. But Emily didn't fall. She didn't collapse. She didn't let herself become the victim. With a sudden, sharp movement, she steadied herself. Her hand gripped the armrest of the chair, and with all the strength she had left, she pushed herself up, standing tall, unsteadily, yes, but standing. The room was dead silent, the faces of the onlookers frozen in shock. Nathan's face drained of color as he watched her stand, his mouth hanging open, unsure of how to react. Emily looked him in the eye, eyes full of pain, but now fueled by anger. "You think you can walk away from this, Nathan? You think you can walk away from me? From us?" His expression faltered, and in that moment, Emily knew the truth was about to come out. The room was still. The chatter had stopped, the clinking of glasses now a distant memory. All eyes were on Emily, standing before Nathan, her legs shaking but her resolve unshaken. The silence stretched for what felt like eternity as Nathan stood there, paralyzed. His face, usually so composed, was now contorted with a mix of disbelief, guilt, and fear. He had never expected this. Never in a million years did he think Emily would confront him here, in front of everyone. "You think you can just shove me aside and pretend everything is fine?" Emily's voice cut through the thick air, steady but sharp. "You think you can marry her without facing me, without facing the truth?" Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was paralyzed, unable to form a coherent sentence. His mind raced, but it was as if his body betrayed him. For once he wasn't in control. Hannah, standing a few steps behind him, looked confused at first, then horrified as she took in the scene. She didn't understand what was happening, why Emily had suddenly stood up from her wheelchair, why Nathan looked as if he had just seen a ghost. But the tension in the air was undeniable. The truth was about to come out. "You don't get to walk away from what you did to me, Nathan," Emily continued, her voice rising with every word. "You don't get to marry her like nothing happened. Like you didn't leave me in that hospital bed, abandoned and alone." The words hit like a punch to the gut. The room went even quieter, the guests exchanging confused glances. A few whispered among themselves, wondering what Emily was talking about. But the truth was starting to unfurl, and there was no stopping it now. Nathan took a deep breath, finally managing to speak, but his words were weak, faltering. "Emily, I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. You know how sorry I am." Sorry?" Emily interrupted, her eyes blazing. "Sorry? Do you really think saying sorry will fix everything? Do you think I don't know what you did?" Nathan's face went pale as realization sank in. He knew what she was talking about now. He knew that the truth that he had buried deep inside for years was about to come crashing down around him. "I know," Emily whispered, her voice low but cutting. "I know the truth, Nathan. I know that you were behind the wheel that night. I know that you were the reason I ended up in that hospital bed, unable to walk, unable to live the life I dreamed of. You didn't just leave me behind, Nathan. You nearly killed me." The words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. The truth had been set free and there was no going back. The weight of her revelation hit everyone in the room, and for the first time, Nathan was exposed. The man who had once been the golden boy, the perfect friend, the man everyone had adored, was now a monster in the eyes of those who had once trusted him. Hannah took a step back, her face going pale as she tried to process what Emily had just said. She glanced at Nathan, her eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. "Nathan, is this true?" Her voice trembled, her grip tightening around the bouquet of flowers she had held so tightly since the ceremony began. Nathan turned to her, but he couldn't look her in the eye. His gaze was distant, his face etched with guilt. For the first time, Emily saw him for who he truly was, not the man she had loved, but someone much darker. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He had no excuses, no defense. He had never imagined that his secret would come to light like this, and now it was tearing him apart. "You lied to her, Nathan," Emily spat, her anger simmering. "You manipulated her into thinking she was marrying the man of her dreams. You kept your secrets, pretending to be something you weren't. You're nothing but a coward." A tremor passed through Nathan's hands as he reached for Hannah, trying to explain, trying to fix it, but it was too late. The damage had been done. His past had caught up with him, and there was no running from it. Hannah's eyes were wide with shock. "But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Her voice was filled with hurt, her hand shaking as she clutched the bouquet tightly. "Why did you let me marry you if—" Before she could finish, Emily's voice rang out again, louder this time, full of fierce conviction. "Because Nathan is a coward, Hannah. He thought he could get away with it. He thought he could marry you and leave me in the past, forgotten. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know who you're really marrying." Hannah's face twisted in pain as she slowly took a step back, staring at Nathan. Her eyes welled with tears, but she held them back, her jaw clenching as she processed what Emily had just revealed. Nathan's world was crumbling and he knew it. "Emily, please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You don't understand. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm sorry. I was young. Young?" Emily sneered, cutting him off. "You were the one behind the wheel, Nathan. You were the one who made the choice to drive that night. You were the one who took my future away from me. No amount of sorry can fix that." The room was now completely silent. Every eye was on Nathan and Emily as they stood there, locked in this confrontation. The air was thick with tension, the weight of the truth pressing down on everyone in the room. Nathan's shoulders slumped as the truth fully sank in. There was no excuse, no explanation that could save him now. He had ruined everything, his marriage, his reputation, and the life he had once taken for granted. And the woman he had once loved, the woman he had betrayed, was standing before him, stronger than ever, exposing him for who he really was. As Emily stood there, facing him with the weight of the truth in her eyes, she realized something. The man who had once been her world was nothing more than a broken memory. And she was finally free. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. The world around Emily felt distant, like she was in a bubble, removed from the chaos she had just unleashed. The truth had been exposed, and now Nathan stood before her, broken. His golden boy facade was gone, replaced by a man who was no longer in control, no longer untouchable. His shoulders sagged, the weight of guilt too heavy to carry. His eyes were downcast, his face pale, and for the first time, Emily could see the truth in him, not the charming, perfect man everyone thought he was, but a liar, a coward, and a betrayer. The room was still, all eyes on Nathan and Emily, who stood locked in a painful confrontation. Hannah, still reeling from the revelation, stepped back. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. She looked between Nathan and Emily, her hands clasped tightly around her bouquet. The woman who had walked down the aisle with such joy just hours ago was now a stranger to Emily. She wasn't angry with Hannah, not really. She didn't know the woman well enough to feel anything toward her, except for the deep sadness that Nathan's lies had trapped her in this twisted game. Hannah's voice broke the silence, faint and shaky. I don't know what to say. She glanced at Nathan, then back to Emily. You lied to me, Nathan. All this time you lied to me. Nathan didn't answer. He couldn't. His lips were dry, his breath shallow. The shame was overwhelming, suffocating him. He had spent years hiding the truth, burying it deep inside, convinced he could outrun it, convinced he could keep the perfect life intact. But now, it had all come crashing down, and Emily had been the one to bring it all to light. Emily's eyes burned with anger, but also with something deeper, a deep sense of betrayal that had festered inside her for too long. The world she had built after the accident, the small, quiet life she had carved out for herself, had always been overshadowed by Nathan's absence, by his refusal to face what he had done. And now here he was standing before her, too weak to face the consequences of his actions. You don't deserve her, Nathan, Emily said quietly, her voice full of quiet rage. You don't deserve anyone's forgiveness. Not hers, not mine. Not anyone's. Her words were like a final blow, a wound that would never heal. She had spent years holding back, holding on to the scraps of the love she had once shared with him. But not anymore. Now she was done. Nathan opened his mouth, trying to say something, anything, but the words failed him. There was nothing left to say. His entire life, his entire world, was unraveling before his eyes, and he could only watch as it all crumbled. I don't care if you're sorry, Emily continued, her voice colder now, sharper. Sorry doesn't change what you did. Sorry doesn't bring back my life, my future. Sorry doesn't make up for the years I spent in that hospital, wondering where you were. Sorry doesn't undo the pain you caused me. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Nathan's eyes were pleading now, but Emily didn't flinch. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of feeling sorry for him. Not anymore. Goodbye, Nathan, she said, her voice low but firm. I hope you find peace because I've already found mine. Without another word, Emily turned her wheelchair around and wheeled herself away, her back straight, her posture strong. As she passed the guests, she could feel their eyes on her, but she didn't care. They could whisper, they could judge, but it didn't matter. She had taken control of her life again. She had stood up for herself, for her truth, and for the first time in years she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Behind her there was a commotion, the sound of footsteps running after her, but Emily didn't turn back. She didn't need to. The world she had once shared with Nathan was gone, and there was no going back. Maya, who had been standing just outside the reception hall, waiting in the wings, came to her side as Emily made her way to the door. She hadn't said anything during the confrontation, but now, as they walked together, Maya's expression softened. You did it, Em, Maya said quietly, her voice full of pride. You took your power back. Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she focused on the steady roll of her wheelchair, her hand on the wheel, guiding herself away from the past. Away from Nathan. Away from the years of hurt he had caused. As they exited the venue, the cool evening air brushed against her face, and Emily felt a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. The sky above her was clear, the stars twinkling in the distance, and for the first time since the accident, she felt like she could breathe again. Thank you, Maya, Emily said softly, her voice full of emotion. I couldn't have done this without you. Maya smiled and squeezed her shoulder gently. You didn't need me, Em. You just needed to realize how strong you are. Emily smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. Yeah, I think I finally get it. As they walked away from the wedding, the lights from the venue flickering in the distance, Emily knew that this was the beginning of something new. No longer would she be defined by the past, by the man who had once loved her and then abandoned her. She was her own person now, stronger, wiser, and free. What are your thoughts on this story? Please leave your comments, like and share this story to your loved ones.